What's up, guys? Welcome to VHP Engines. Today's topic here is going to be based on the question I get. Is what I've gotten the most since I've been building fucking these Honda engines, and it's how much power can I make on my stock single cam, stock B series, stock whatever. There's going to be a little bit of discussion here before I actually get into the meat of the topic here, which is going through the list of engines and how much power they can make versus how much they can safely make. And so what I'm going to do is down in the description below, if you're wanting to just speed through this and get to your specific topic faster, I'm going to leave the timestamps so that way you can just skip forward to your particular engine that you're trying to get to. This is actually mainly induced because of the single cams, but going to talk about all of them so I can knock them all out in one whack. Now, this, of course, isn't an exact science here. This is my opinion, but this is my opinion based off what I've been able to produce and what I've seen people produce, and what I've been around for a long time. If you want to go by textbook definitions of power, then I have a book here that I would like to hold up and show you, but I can't because I don't know where the fuck I put it. But anyway, generally speaking, for the Honda experts, once you reach the point of doubling the original engine's horsepower, you want to go with forged pistons and rods. But as we'll talk about once we get into the discussion of some of these engines, that's not the case at all. You don't have to worry about that. And then some of them, they really are. And then it really, of course, it really comes down to the rod itself. What you're dealing with is usually the weakest point. But in some of these older engines, some of these older, smaller engines, the D series, have very, very small toothpick size fucking rods. All right. So a lot of times, people always want to make power on a budget, and I understand that. That's part of the reason why I do this channel, is so that way I can try to help give. Even if I don't teach you how to build an engine, even if you take your stuff to somebody else, at least you're going into it with an understanding of how much power you can make with whatever fucking parts you're giving the guy, whether it's a stock OEM overhaul or it's a forged rebuild. So you have a decent idea based off parts that you have and bolt-ons and stuff or turbos, what you're gonna put down when everything's finished. Okay, so here's another thing too. A lot of guys are like, they come ask me like, well, I just want to make this much power, so they come up with a random horsepower number in their head that they think is impressive, and like, well, what do you do to make that? Well, the first thing you gotta understand when you're saying this shit is, a lot of the times the guys that ask me these basic questions are people who've never experienced a high horsepower car, and you can't just say 250 horsepower. That's all I ever want to do, because power is addictive in general, and once you get used to a power level, which isn't very long, it doesn't take very long to get used to a certain power level. You're gonna want more, especially if you're out there fucking around the streets and you're running into other cars, and you're gonna think that you're gonna think that your new speed is unbeatable because it's the first time you've ever experienced it, and then you're gonna eventually run against somebody who's gonna make you look like you're not moving, and you're gonna be like, well, fuck that, I want more power, and or you may just want more power for more power's sake, because when I had my boosted set up, I always like to punch it like 2 or 3 times a day, just because it's a good rush to fill that little third gear pool out of a 400 plus horsepower car. It feels great. Also, one real quick what I want to talk about is another question I get all the fucking time, and it drives me absolutely batshit crazy, is well, I want to boost this much PSI and make this much power. Can I do it? Or I just want to boost this much pounds. Alright, so you do realize that PSI is fucking completely irrelevant for your turbos, because every fucking turbo is a different size and different spec, and every turbo is going to flow differently. If you look at, as a fan, just a regular fan, whatever fan that you go to buy isn't going to fucking blow the same amount of air or the same kind of speed as every other fan on the market, because they're not all the same. They're all fucking different, unless you're buying a whole bunch of the same brand. All right, here's for example, you get one of those little tiny handheld fans with the styrofoam blades, and you put that shit on, let's just say like 1,000 RPMs. But that little fan wheel is this big and it's blowing in one spot. So you're gonna get that blow going on hardcore on that one spot, but the rest of you still gonna be hot as fuck. Now, you could put that fucking tiny little fan at 1,000 RPMs, go get a big ass box fan, put it on the lowest setting, and that little box fan, or that box fan on the lowest setting, is gonna blow fuck tons more air, and and maybe even at a higher speed than that tiny little fan will. That's the same thing for your turbo. The fucking GT70 is not gonna blow, or is gonna blow 5 times more, or just generally speaking, it's gonna blow a fuck ton more volume than a turbo that's a GT30. So a GT70 at fucking 24 psi versus a goddamn a GT30 at 24 psi it's not gonna be the same. It's not gonna be the same at all, because the turbos are 2 different sizes. They're gonna push different fucking air, different amounts of air. What you want to do is you do want to come up with a horsepower number, and then you want to go with the turbo size based off the power that you're looking to achieve. Now, and then, or let's just say that you want to sacrifice power, like you're not worried so much about your top numbers, you're worried more about responsiveness, right? And I get this a lot of times too. I don't want to lag. I don't want to lag too much. Well, I've had big fucking turbos, and to be honest, like what you really got to ask yourself, too, when you're looking to build something that's got a high horsepower is, where the fuck are you going to spend most of your time putting this power down? When you're thinking about, boost lag and shit like that, you really have to worry about that if you're going to be digging your car all the time. You're going to launch your car. And unless you're going to the fucking track, or unless you're going to hangouts every fucking weekend, that you're constantly doing digs, which I know like 99% of people aren't, because roll racing's taking over, because it's better all around. It's fucking, it's safer on your car and makes your shit last longer. But anyway, if you're gonna be digging, that's when you got to worry about, a lot about lag. If you're gonna be doing highway pulls, then it's not that big a factor either. But then also, you do of course want to keep your turbo size. You don't want to go too big. You want to, like, say, like 400 horsepower. 400 horsepower is my goal. I just want 400 horsepower. So then you get a turbo that's a little bit bigger than you need for 400 horsepower, because it'll get you there, and it won't put strain on the turbo to get you there. So for a 400 horsepower setup, I would say, recommend going with a GT30, because a GT30, depending on the brand you get, can make up to 500 horsepower. But 500 horsepower GT30 would be max, so you would be straining the turbo, meaning the lifespan on that turbo would be shorter. But if you're only getting to 400, that's what you need. Now, the same thing, like if you go too small, like you go with a 25R or something like that, then to go for 400, you're straining the turbo. And of course, another thing that comes into play is which engine that you're using that turbo for, because the displacement, it also comes into effect there too. So for a bigger engine to push a bigger turbo, it's easier. So for a responsive turbo, if you want something that's going to be quick and light and spool up right away, then I would say going with a smaller turbo. Like if you got a B series engine and you're wanting to stay stock, then a GT25 or 28 or a 30 would definitely be a recommended turbo, because you'll have enough to get where you're trying to get. All right, so now we'll go ahead and jump into the meat of the topic, and we're going to start off with the D series engine. Now, what I've done here is I've listed these power levels based on what I'm pretty confident they could go to without exploding. Also, I put the stock safe limitations on there based on what I warranty my engines. I know I haven't talked about it too much, but I warranty my builds, and I warranty my builds for a horsepower that I feel to be comfortable where it shouldn't blow up on you. All right. Now, for a D series, and this is, like I said, it's not exact science. This is just based off of what I've seen happen over and over and over again. And, every time I say something like this, some fucking asshole genius comes out here and contradicts me, like, oh, my friend did this, or I used to do this once upon a time. I don't give a fuck. I really don't, You come out here and tell me that, like, stock single cam. I think the maximum horsepower that you can really put down on a D series without it fucking blowing up on you right away is right around the 300 wheel horsepower mark. And that's because your rods are like as big as your fucking pinky. You're looking at throwing one out the block if you're boosting on a setup like that. So now, I would say the stock recommendation, every time anybody asks me this, a stock horsepower for a single cam, the maximum power that I feel safe taking a stock single cam block to is right around 210 wheel horsepower. 210, 220, absolute max. Now, it doesn't take much to get it there if you're going to boost it. Even if you use a baby turbo, it's not going to take much out of that baby turbo with some tuning to get you to the 200 horsepower range. And 200 horsepower in an older Civic chassis does feel pretty friggin' good. So it'll give you enough to play with, but it's not something, the stock single cam isn't something I would recommend anybody boosting, because 200 horsepower is really good and responsive in there, and with a good suspension setup, it's very easy to put down, a high 12-second pass with that, which is impressive. But of course, that's a lot of practice, great suspension, all that shit. I just wouldn't recommend building the D series stock boost, stock for boost. But if you do a stock build on it, I wouldn't push it past 210 wheel horsepower. And what takes getting it up there to high horsepower is just pistons and rods. Pistons and rods alone, some ARP head studs, and you're looking at a 400 wheel horsepower capable engine. So that's why I like the D series as a go-to build, because it's the cheapest one to build to get that kind of power out of reliably, like 400 wheel horsepower all day. And that's okay. Here's something else that I forgot to add into. My stock safe limit is stock indefinitely. Yes, there's people out there that have made 300 horsepower on a single cam, but if you keep it at the safe ranges that I warranty my engines, there's no reason why that engine won't last you just as long as it would if you kept it stock, as long as you do your basic maintenance. Now, here's the most popular one that everybody likes to go with, the B series. And this is all B series blocks, all of them across the board, even the B20, I would say this for. And yes, the B20 does have weaker sleeves, simply because of the fact that it is the same exact setup, as the same block as the B18B, except for 81 millimeter. They bored the same block out to 84 millimeter. Now, so of course you're taking a good chunk of material off there, so it's going to be weaker. But I think that the key to longevity for a B20 is simply tuning. Tuning is a big thing for that, because I've seen a B20 pop a sleeve on a high compression build making 220 horsepower, and I've also seen a B20 make keep together for years, boosted at 400 plus. So it's one of those hit or miss. It's the only block from Honda that everybody's sketchy on, and they're sketchy for a good reason. All right, and so B series in general, other than the B20, for sure, 100% the other B series. Now there's been a B16 that I've seen the Super Street did like maybe a decade ago, that they pushed all the way up to like 500 horsepower. Now 500 horsepower capable stock, but a ticking time bomb. So the max horsepower I'd recommend out of a B18B, B18C, B16, all them shits, they can make 400 wheel horsepower stock and probably last for a little while. But if you want to keep it like I said, keep it long term, as if you never modified it, 350 wheel horsepower is what I warranty my B series blocks, stock blocks to. That's why I feel safe taking them to. And 350 wheel horsepower will last you forever, as long as you don't miss shift, and and as long as you keep up your basic maintenance. Now, as far as where you can take that block to with the stock sleeves, pistons and rods alone will take you around 480 wheel horsepower, but I warranty my pistons and rods builds on. And even 500 wheel horsepower, although 500 wheel horsepower, right around that range, you start getting shaky on it, depending on what fuel you're using. I would, E85 with really big injectors and a really big fuel pump. If you're gonna go stock sleeves, 500 wheel horsepower. Next we're gonna go into the F series. Except for I'm gonna start. I know there's 3 F engines. There's the dock F22b B, I think it is. Then there's the single cam F series, and then there's the F series that comes in the S2K. So starting off with the F series that comes out of the Accords, the single cam F series. Those F series engines are actually pretty beefy. Not only do they have the larger displacement that helps make more power, but the rods are actually pretty fucking big too. I've seen 400 wheel horsepower out of a stock F series. So, but I will go ahead and stamp 400 wheel horsepower as the the max where you would take it to sock with that sock to without it blowing up on you. And then, but if you want to keep it safe, I'll warranty it the same as I would a B series, 350 wheel horsepower stock, and 450 horsepower. I would say 450 plus with pistons and rods. Same, again, the F series stock, I'll put it right around the same capabilities of the B series. Now, the F22b B, I think I would put it around the same as the B series, just because of the fact that unlike the H22, and now correct me if I'm wrong about this, it's possible because once upon a time I was proven wrong on the H because I completely forgot that some of the H22s have closed decks and the H23 has a closed deck on it. So but I'm pretty sure the F22Bs are open deck just like the other B series are. So I wouldn't say that it's much more capable than the B series at the same kind of power levels stock. Now the F series from the S2K is fucking amazing. That engine, 500 wheel horsepower stock. It's capable of 500 wheel horsepower stock and capable of keeping it there for a long amount of time. There was a guy. It's actually a guy that I'd kind of be, I kind of wouldn't mind doing a feature video on, who had a stock S2K that kept around the 500 wheel horsepower mark, and as far as I knew, it never blew up. And he actually spoke to me recently when I did the feature for Alex. So I wouldn't mind talking about his S2K eventually. Shout out, just in case by chance he sees it, as Keyshawn Morton, goes by Keys, if I do remember properly. But anyway, that's the F22C and shit. Now the S2K is fucking amazing. It's an amazing engine. But just to say on the safe side, if I were to build an F22 and sell it, which is fucking not likely, but if I were to build one and sell it, the warranty for a stock engine rebuild would be in the mid 400s. 400 to 450 wheel horsepower. I think you could do that all day, never blow up, as long as you maintain it properly. And now with pistons and rods, you're looking at a 600 wheel horsepower car. Yeah, of course, but at that point you'd have to upgrade fuel and big ass fuel injectors, big ass fuel pump. But 600 wheel horsepower plus, I would say, out of a stock or out of a pistons and rods build. Now I'll get to the one here that's not the most popular, and honestly I kind of did like a quick brush up on this last night. I haven't really looked at it too much. Is the J series. Now the J32 and the J35, I'm not going to get into the details of the A1, A2, A4, all that bullshit, because I didn't really have enough time to go over all of that. But just from looking at the J32 and looking at the J35, the J32 rods, the stock rods, are also like the size of single cams. They're real tiny. So I know that the early J32s, they were rated around 200 wheel horsepower, something like that. So I would say I wouldn't push that one at the maximum power. I wouldn't push it over 350 wheel horsepower. And the reason why I give it that extra 50 wheel horsepower over, over the single cam is just because of the fact that, much bigger displacement, and you got 2 extra pistons and rods that are pushing. But just for the stock safety, my stock safety limit is also much higher, 300 wheel horsepower, over the single cam's 210. 300 wheel horsepower, I think you could probably maintain that for a long period of time. And the only way I could really change that is if I actually built and sold one, and I haven't, and I don't. I mean, I actually wouldn't mind buying a J32, but I think if I bought one, I don't think I would keep it stock. I think I would build it. And if I did build it, pistons and rods, I think I feel pretty confident in saying that 500 wheel horsepower from pistons and rods is something easily doable, just because of the displacement alone. It shouldn't take that much boost to get it up there. I think if you pick a GT35R, you're looking at 500 wheel horsepower at a low boost range. The J35's rods are really beefy, so I'd say J35 make 400 wheel horsepower plus all day without problems. And then of course pistons rods, I'd rate it about the same, just because of the fact that the sleeves and the displacement is the same. It's you're not really changing much there. Now, moving on to the most popular topic, the one I'm going to save for last, is the K series. But I'm going to start off with the weaker versions of the K series first. That way you know which ones to avoid and why to. The K series, the K28-3, and for the K24, the K24A4. Now, there's a whole bunch of the good Ks out there, but I didn't list them all because there's a lot more. I just point out the weak ones, that way you know. But generally speaking, most Honda guys already know the answer to this one. The K20A3 and the K24A4, they are the engines that come out of the EP3SI, the base model RSX, and it comes also out of, oh crap, sorry, I got distracted there. Something from fucking Facebook popped up on the phone. Forgot to turn on airplane mode. Okay, so the K20A3 comes out of the EP3 and the base model RSX, and their factory rating is like 160 horsepower, and they put down probably around 130 wheel horsepower. The good thing about that over the older B series engines, non-VTEC at least, is that they have higher torque from the displacement. And then there's the K20A4 comes out of the Accord. For stock maximum horsepower, I would say 300 wheel horsepower. Anything over that, it's gonna blow up right away. For a safe long-term horsepower range on that, I would say 260 wheel horsepower at most. Honestly, I kind of feel a little iffy on that because, again, the rods being the weak point. The rods are really skinny. They're toothpicks. And plus, people know, like, if you look all over the forums, you talk about building an A3. If you get past just the people that are like, nope, they're garbage, don't fucking do it, and you actually listen to the people that say the reason why is they throw rods real easy, and that's because they're real small. You can actually go back and watch the K20 build I did, and you can see the side-by-side comparison. Let's see about leaving the link, having the card pop up. The side-by-side comparison shows you that the A3 rods are way smaller than the fucking A2, very comparable to a single cam. Now, as far as the K20A2s and the Z1s and all those, the good ones, the RSX Type S motor, the K20 Type R motor, the rods on them are really big and beefy. They're really strong. The design is different from the older ones with the rod bolts. 400 wheel horsepower, I'd warranty that stock block all day. 400 wheel horsepower easy. Probably even 450 wheel horsepower, no problem on the long term, because these K20s out there and these K24s are out there, stock blocks putting down fucking 500 wheel horsepower with just tune and fuel. It's crazy. And there was another guy down there was in Miami that he had a stock K20A2. He was boosting up 500s, and he ran that car for months before it finally tossed the rod out the block. You know, races, digs, you know, highway pulls, stuff like that. So I want to wrap this up here in the end too. This isn't anything specific, more of just a rant at the end here. Is that I've heard people that not only say, well, I just want this much horsepower, and what I need to do to get there, because I think this such horsepower is just too big. And there's a lot of guys out there who think that, oh, anything more than 350 wheel horsepower in these cars is just ridiculous. You can't put it down. That is completely not fucking true at all. If you insist on that without truly knowing, which means without having owned one of that power yourself. Ay, Jesus Christ. If you're saying this without actually having owned a car with that much power yourself, then you're really speaking from complete fucking ignorance. There are plenty of guys out here. I mean, just look at 1320's videos. You know, look at those knockdown, drag out digs races they have for the big money. Look at those highway pulls. They got fucking 1,000+ horsepower cars on here in the fucking street, running and putting down power. So what the fuck makes you think that you can't put down 400 horsepower in a Honda? What makes you think that 350 is your absolute limit because anything else in a four-wheel drive car is just too much? Maybe it's because you didn't spend fucking money on suspension. Maybe it's because your wheel and tire combo is fucking horrible. Maybe you're a shit driver. You know, but you know, there's plenty of super fucking high horsepower cars on here in the street putting that shit down. Now, of course, there is that, you know, I would say that once you get to around the 500 wheel horsepower mark, you're already looking at like a 10-second flat Honda if you're a decent driver. So I would say that it's, you know, okay to argue at that kind of limit. that you don't want a 10-second, you don't want anything faster than a 10-second car on the street, just because, it's the street. The car's insanely fast. It's going to be hard to control and maneuver that shit in the wrong circumstance situation. So the chance of you dying is a lot higher. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to spin and never fucking hook. That just comes down to what kind of racing you do. If you're somebody if your Honda's your only car and you're making fucking 400 plus horsepower of it, and you're at the track every other day, and you're digging with people in the back alleys every other day, then yeah, I can see maybe you have a little frustration, because it's not, when you're off the track, it's a little bit difficult to put that power down out of a dig. But let's be real and honest here. You're driving a little Honda. It's not like you're fucking at the racing 24/7. You spend most of your time doing pickup races on the highway. You're going 65 miles an hour. You're going to put that power down when you go. It's going to catch. It's going to take off. I dailied a 440 horsepower car for a year, and I fucked with plenty of people. There was never one time that I lost a race. And you never caught me fucking, oh man, if only I had traction. That wasn't the case. And I didn't have good suspension. I had fucking heated up springs that were bouncy as hell. Anyway, that's a rant that I've had. It's pent up in me for a long time, and I wanted to get that out of me. Now I feel better than I have. Alright, so for my regular views on here, I know that I've been slacking with putting some stuff out, just to give you a heads up of what's going on with that. Like I said, for your Facebook followers, I want to get a tripod, because I'd like to be able to get up close to some of the builds I'm doing. As long as I use my my vise table, my table vise to hold the fucking camera, it kind of limits me to how close I can get something. The next video that I want to do that starts off the next engine build series is I want to actually go through the detailing part of the cleaning, and I can't really get up close to that. And if I mount the camera far up behind me, even if I pull my wash tank closer, you're not going to really see the detail. So I'm kind of waiting on that, because I'm looking for something like a grill that I can put on top of my wash tank that I have, so that way I can pull it out of the fucking solvent, have it sitting up in the plain sight, so you guys can see it while I'm doing it. So that should be coming soon. I have somebody who's volunteering to give me a grate or something like that from an old grill later on this week, and if that doesn't happen, then this weekend I'll go out and buy one. Anyway, guys, I'm sorry that the video flow shortened down. I'm gonna make a channel update here recently. It's gonna explain that a little bit more. For the rest of you guys, thanks for watching. In the description, I have links for Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can feel free to hit me up even here in the channel if you want to talk privately. I guess the favorite place for people to go is Facebook. So follow the description and follow it there. If you are a subscriber and you haven't followed me on Facebook, you guys should. I mean, I know recently I haven't put out that many updates, but if I haven't done a lot of video stuff, then generally speaking, I'm on there to let you guys know what's going on and why I have it. Or even if it's just to give you a heads up of what videos coming in the future. So thanks for watching, guys. Like the video if you got anything out of it, please. Appreciate that. And subscribe if you want to see more. Peace.